Hello, fellow human light beings. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about the concept of enlightenment. We're going to talk about enlightenment versus salvation. What are the differences and the similarities to the concepts? And we're going to talk about how 3D religion uses the concept of enlightenment to keep you enslaved. So I don't know if you're aware of it, but there was no concept of enlightenment before around the time of Buddhism. When Buddhism showed up, then there was this concept of achieving a state of enlightenment and staying there. And there's really no difference between that concept and the concept of salvation. It's pretty much the same thing. It has the same symbolic meaning to your mind. And it represents the cessation of pain. That you achieve a state where you're no longer in pain, that you no longer suffer. But this is a relatively new concept in human history. Bear in mind, humans have been on the planet. Modern humans have been on the planet for 100,000 years or more. And during that entire time, spirituality was number one, practical. It was a way of interfacing with your environment and being able to survive. And it was what we would call shamanic, which means that when you go back in every religion, you go back far enough, you will find polytheistic, animistic interactions. Again, people have the awareness that they live in a multiverse, and this multiverse has many different beings and consciousnesses that they interact with, and it is about seeking a state of balance with all of the different worlds and all of the different beings. And we see this again in even modern versions of shamanism. I use the word in quotes because anyway, I've made a bunch of videos about how that word has been misunderstood, but it's a word that we understand. If I go to the average person and I talk about animism, they won't know what I'm talking about. If I say shamanism, they'll at least have an understanding that you're dealing with, interacting with the spiritual realm and the physical and seeking a balance. What you have originally with the understanding of spirituality, early, quote, religions, is that what you're dealing with is a bunch of different powers. That we live in a multiverse that is infiltrated on many sides by different powers. And you can gain a lot of power. But gaining a lot of power doesn't mean that you're religiously enlightened. Gaining a lot of power just means you have power. Again, now we separate it. Spirituality. We have to use the word spirituality because there's so many people that don't experience anything that we would call supernatural, and there's many, many people who don't believe in any kind of non-physical reality. So the idea that we even have to say spirituality as a separate practice or idea would be completely mind-boggling to our ancestors, because spirituality, spirits, powers, different conscious states, different realms. This was just part of reality. That was just reality for them. There was the seen world and the unseen world, and sometimes, the two came together, and sometimes it was dangerous and sometimes it was beneficial, and so you had to find a way to balance it all out. And we even still have this today. There are remnants of the pre-Christian animist religion of our European ancestors in what we call fairy tales. And in fairy tales, there's no idea that there is enlightenment and ignorance. There are beings of power who use that power either for good or for ill. So the wizard, for example, we see this in the Lord of the Rings. Wizards have access to power, and they have technologies, which we would look at as magic and meditation or whatever, but for them it was just technologies that they would use. And these technologies allowed them to gain power, to gain experience in other dimensions and use that. In fact, kings would have sorcerers and wizards in their court. And so it wasn't a question of whether or not there was power and experience and non-physical realities out there. It was whether or not the person that had access to this was using it consciously or destructively. The wizard could be, in fact, wizards were dangerous. Even if they were well-meaning, it's just that all of that power in a human being, you had to be careful, because you never knew what you were going to get. And so that's why there were good witches and bad witches, and good wizards and evil wizards and dark sorcerers and all of that. It had to do with the character of the individual. What determined whether or not a spiritual practitioner was constructive and healing had everything to do with their character. And this is important because nowadays when we think of gurus, here we got this guy who's levitating. So this means that in this cartoon, it means that he has power. So he's accessed power. But the assumption of the modern person, if they were to truly see somebody that wasn't faking it, there's a lot of people who fake this stuff. It's pretty amazing how they fake levitating. It's really amazing. But assuming somebody had the spiritual power to meditate and to levitate, the assumption is this person must be enlightened, meaning that they must be powerful and full of light and love and healing, and they no longer suffer. And so therefore you want to follow this person and teach me how to become enlightened. But that idea of reaching a state of enlightenment where all of the pain is gone and all of the lessons are gone and you're now just, you've achieved it, there's nothing left to do, that is absolutely a new concept. And again, it emerged around the time that Buddhism came around. And again, as I've said in previous videos, Buddha was not the way he's represented. He wasn't floating on the air and he was rainbow sparkles coming out of him. He was a human being, and he was extremely human. He died a very painful death from illness, which from my perspective, that means that there was a lot of imbalance in him psychologically and emotionally. And he was also a meat eater. He ate animals, which again is completely different. If there's so many Buddhists out there that, are so, legalistic about being vegan or vegetarian. I don't have an issue one way or another, but it shows a misunderstanding of the person you're following didn't live like that. So we now have this idea of, in the Hindu influenced tradition, around the world, people who dabble in Vedic Hindu yoga or whatever, the New Age version of it, People are seeking to be free from reincarnation, and somehow that means that you've achieved enlightenment. So anyway, it's an assumption. The assumption of having a samadhi experience, which is a meditative experience, similar to what this picture here is representing. A meditative experience where somebody completely becomes engulfed in the experience of the infinite. And they go beyond their limited self, and they experience powerful, energetic Kundalini experience, and they feel themselves one with God and one with everything and one with all beings, and then they come back into their body, and very often their life will completely change because their perspective has changed, and they might even become teachers. They might have gifts. They might have gifts of intuition, healing, things like that. And that's assuming that this isn't a fake, as opposed to Satya Sai Baba, who used to give people candy and watches and jewelry and, do sleight of hand to make it look like he was making these things come out of nowhere, as if that would mean anything. Like somebody who had achieved that has any, just crazy nonsense. But the idea behind what's destructive for us is when we have a desire to achieve a state where we're free of all pain, misery, conflict, and confusion. Because that is called codependence. We've been talking about this. Codependence is when you are looking for something outside of you to give you value and to give you worth. And the idea that you'll reach a place where you'll be free from pain, misery, and understanding is a codependent idea, because you're trying to escape your own pain. And it's no different than taking a pill or taking a drug to get out of your feelings. It doesn't accomplish anything. Now, let me share with you my experiences. First, I'll share with you my experiences of people that I've interacted with, teachers. I have learned from people who had power, real power. They had the ability to touch you and fill you with energy and make you fall on the floor and laugh, cry. They had the ability to, touch you and you'd go flying across the room. They could put energy into you, such powerful energy that you'd hear a thud and they wouldn't be touching you. I've achieved these things. There was a time in my life when I was training in the Maoshan, which I teach you here at the 923.thunderwizard.com. I was training in this for hours every day, and I had to be careful, because if I wasn't paying attention and I touched somebody, they might fall on the ground and begin crying and have some kind of awakening experience. There was one time I was at a gathering, and there was this woman there, and how some people aren't very very constructive, and she was trying to flirt with me, but she was doing it in a negative way. And so she would come up and she would start giving me a hard time. And I was training so much, I was just in this zone all the time. And I said, "Why do you talk to me like that?" And she said, "I don't know, maybe it's because my father this." And I saw myself, I wasn't planning it. I literally saw myself take her hand and put it to my chest, and I said, "See, I'm safe. You have nothing to worry about." And I put her hand, the back of her hand, touching my chest. And then she fell to the ground and said, "Oh my God, I'm going to cry." And she started crying, and then she immediately stopped. She said, "What did you do to me?" I said, "I have no idea. What happened to you?" She said, "I felt this energy go up my arm, and when it got to my heart, I just felt this overwhelming emotion that I had to cry." And from then on, she called me the Buddha. And I tried to explain to her, I'm just a human being. I'm learning this energetic practice, but she And she'd go, that's the Buddha. She'd tell somebody, that's the guy, that's the Buddha. Now, if I was a different person, I could have used that to my benefit. But I had no interest in that. And it's just not true. So I know from personal experience that having an energetic experience, having a samadhi experience, doesn't mean that you have achieved anything other than you've tackled and had contact with an energy that's different from what we're used to. That's all it means. I've known guys who, again, were extremely powerful and very abusive. I know one guy who was able to tap into that kind of power, and he got a following, and he presented himself as a bodhisattva. And he would tell people that he died and resurrected himself. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But here's the interesting thing. He was using the same kinds of energies that I'm able to tap into. But because of his consciousness, and because he was using it for his own personal empowerment, what was happening is that the people following him were getting attacked by demons. And it's because the consciousness of the person who was transmitting the energy was not focused on his own evolution and other people's evolution. He was damaged emotionally, psychologically, and he was using the energy to gain a following, to gain power. He lied about himself multiple times, and I know that he lied because I have access to the people he was talking about and the things that he said that they said about him. And he was portraying himself as this, this savior of the world, guru type thing. So I know that he was lying, but his power was real. So I bring that to your attention because one of the things that is used in modern New Age spirituality and religion is the idea that the teacher has achieved a state of enlightenment. Therefore, the teacher is enlightened. And as I said, I made a video yesterday, a couple of videos yesterday, but I had to look at my negative feelings inside of me that were bothering me because I was talking about Sadhguru and the things I didn't like about him. What's been interesting is the responses. Everybody's responses about him is interesting. But I had to just take a look at where that was coming from in me. And of course, it came from my insecurities, my struggles with my own spiritual teachership. And, what would happen if I had that much popularity and influence? How would I feel about that? Do I feel worthy of having all of that? Those were my issues, and so I was projecting onto Sadhguru the judgments that I had unconsciously about myself. And as I said multiple times, I don't regret anything I've said about him or any of my criticisms. But my main criticism is that his students definitely deify him. He may not have said anything overtly or done anything to overtly create that. But at the very least, he has subtly insinuated it. And if you know anything about Sadhguru, he had an enlightenment experience, a samadhi experience. And I believe that. I believe that he did. I believe that he meditated and he became one with everything and he was filled with Kundalini power. I believe that when people came around him at that time, they were affected by his energy. But there's nothing about that is that unusual. It's rare, but it is available literally to every single person. And this is why in some traditions where people use hallucinogenics, They use the hallucinogenics to have that, to have a samadhi experience. It's rather forced and artificially produced, but it's the same thing. But have you ever met anybody who's done ayahuasca or LSD, for example, who has achieved enlightenment and isn't crazy? Who has had, mind expanding experiences, and then they put on a turban and walk around and say, I'm an enlightened teacher? I've never seen that. I've seen people lose their mind and go bonkers because they took too much acid. So we have a different assumption when it comes to spiritual teachers. If a spiritual teacher claims or actually did have an enlightenment experience, a samadhi experience where they became one with everything, and it, gave them powers and energy, we just assume that they are perfect. And this comes again from the Buddhist tradition, which started that misunderstanding, which again, I love the real Buddhist teachings I love, and I love how, there's that phrase, if you see Buddha on the side of the road, kill him. This is a Buddhist saying, because if you see the perfection you're seeking after, you will stop trying to accomplish that for yourself. And so when a teacher allows themselves to be seen as perfected and enlightened, and knowingly doesn't do something to change that in his students or her students, that is destructive, because the students stop trying to evolve themselves. What they start to do is they start to codependently placate the teacher, and what the teacher says is true. And you should never take anything a teacher says as absolute gospel truth. Because once you start believing that they're no longer human, that they're no longer limited, then you can get yourself into real trouble. But even if that's not the case, so again, I made a video yesterday about Sadhguru, and I shared with you my stuff that I was projecting onto him. And even if I take him at face value, and even if I give him the benefit of the doubt, I no longer feel a need, like he's not bothering me anymore. I'm now in a position where I see him exactly the way I'm talking about. He's a human being who had an experience, and he's taken that, it changed his life, and he's sharing that with the world, and he's doing his thing. But he's still human. He's still human. And this is the thing we need to remember. And I've tried to make it clear to you over and over and over again. And I'm sure it's quite obvious that I'm human. There's only one person on the planet that I consider my teacher. And he's not my teacher because he levitates or walks on water. He's my teacher because he has shown that he is able to tolerate his own negative feelings, and he's able to tolerate other people's negative feelings and not be in a state of judgment. And he's still able to evolve and grow, and he's able to help other people love themselves and evolve and grow without having to be more than human. And again, for me, a teacher is somebody that I can relate to, and I look at and I go, that person has been through what I'm going through, and they've gotten beyond it. I want to know how they did that. That for me is a teacher. So, so I'm here to tell you, based on my experience and based on my observation, based on my research, I have tested everybody that has claimed to have achieved enlightenment. I have tested them in various ways, and I found that none of them had achieved enlightenment in the way that they presented themselves. None of them. Some of them, as I said, like Satya Sai Baba, absolutely a con man. Absolutely a con man, no two ways about it. other cult leaders, absolute con men. Many of them are well-meaning, and they're just limited. And some of them are a mixture of both. Again, they're human. And what I do with teachers always is I ask myself, is there something I can learn from them? Because if I start to judge them as being right or wrong or good or bad or perfect or imperfect, none will pass my test, none of them. There isn't anybody on the planet that has ever been able to convince me that they were anything other than human. So I ask myself, is there something this person has that I want? And does this person have something that I can learn from? And if the answer is yes, then I continue to train with them. If I get to a point where there's really nothing they can give to me or I can learn from, then I walk away. So I give the same thing to my students. If I get to the place with my students where I feel like there's nothing I can do for them, I will stop working with them. I will say, listen, I don't think that I can help you. And if I can't help you, I don't want to waste your time or take your money. If I'm working with a student that's not following instructions and they are either incapable or unwilling to follow instructions, I stop working with them. Because I believe that a teacher needs to be able to give something and lead in some way. But I never want to give my students the feeling that as long as they're part of my group and part of my entourage, they're safe, like Jesus. You're part of me, you're saved. And again, salvation and enlightenment, basically the same thing. Ending of suffering, ending of confusion. And what I've found is that as long as you are in the third dimension, there will always be something that you need to work on. There will always be something you need to overcome. Because if you get to the point where you really do vibrate beyond that, you will no longer be in the third dimension. You will shift into a higher dimension. Just like Babaji. I believe that Babaji exists. So if the closest thing to enlightenment is a Babaji type of being, even then, Babaji is still learning. He's still growing. The gods, I don't care what god you want to talk about, Shiva or Thor or Odin or pick a god. That deity is still learning. There is no end point. You don't get to a point and you graduate and it's over. And that assumption is a destructive assumption in spirituality. And that has always been my belief, but now it's really my belief because I've now experienced higher dimensions. I've had so many samadhi experiences where I've gone to higher dimensions and my consciousness has expanded and I've been filled with bliss to the point where I've been in tears. So much bliss, so much amazing wonderfulness. And eventually I always end up coming back into my third dimensional reality, and I still got human problems and issues, and I still have things to learn. So I know from personal experience, just because you had a samadhi experience doesn't mean that you've achieved everything. The only people who believe that are the people who haven't experienced it. And the whole point of what I'm doing on this channel is I want you to experience what I'm experiencing. And I'm going to give you the tools to do it. Here are the tools. Follow my instructions. Now, you're a different person. It might take you longer. You might have other things to work through. That's fine. But I will always endeavor to give you the feeling that you can achieve everything I've achieved and you can even surpass me. Because there's no end. I've experienced this as well. I've seen that there are. I'm gonna guess. It feels to me like there's, I think, 12 dimensions, and each time you go up a dimension, things expand exponentially beyond, I mean, just absolutely mind-blowing. And each of those dimensions, there are beings that are still growing, still learning. Compared to us, they're perfect. But that's only because we're so far beneath them in terms of dimensional understanding. I mean, we can't, I mean, it's, you know, it's like an ant trying to understand a human. I mean, we're so far, we have so much more power and capabilities and understandings and brain power that they have. To them, we're gods. But we know we're just, you know, beings trying to accomplish something else and grow all the time and achieve our happiness. So I want to help you get over that. If you have that belief. And what was interesting, so first off, I'm really glad that this whole Sadhguru thing came up. I'm glad that I shared with the channel the misgivings I had about how he was presenting himself and how he was either consciously or unconsciously allowing his millions of followers to see him in a light that I thought was inaccurate. I'm glad that I took a look at the things inside of me that were bothering me about him, and now I can get rid of that and I can just see him as what I think he is. I think he's a sincere human being who's had an experience, and he wants to teach others and he wants to help the world, and he's a human being, and he has all of the failings that human beings have, including the rather immature, limited belief that because he's had a samadhi experience, he's now a fully enlightened master, and not to understand he's still human. And I'm going to prove it to you. So what I want to do right now is I want to take a look at some of the comments that people have written because of these, you know, few videos I put up in the past couple of days. Again, the first experience I had is somebody commented me and canceled me. You know, how dare I criticize another spiritual teacher? You know, what's wrong with me? I'm doing it for my own ego. I'm doing it for money. I don't know where he got that idea. And those personal attacks were very hurtful to me. But it was obvious he liked Sadhguru and couldn't tolerate anybody criticizing him. A couple other people during the live stream last time were like, wait a minute, Sadhguru's a good guy. He's planted a lot of trees. He's done this. And so what we're running into again is people's codependence, which means we see things as black and white. People are all good or all bad. This is childish. This is what infants do. Infants look up to their parents, and their parents are God, and their parents are all good. And so everything's either all good or all bad. So the idea that a teacher can't be extremely knowledgeable, powerful, wise, and yet still be a human being with human foibles like ego and narcissism, and still be immature, still be naive. And I'm gonna go on a limb and say what I see in Sadhguru, at the very least, if I give him the benefit of the doubt, is some naivete, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. But at first, I want to read some comments. So here's one. Somebody wants to just judge Sadhguru and make some accusations. I'm not going to repeat because it's all hearsay. But he doesn't like Sadhguru. Let's see. Somebody else says same kind of thing. Sadhguru, yeah, personal attacks, so I won't repeat it. This person says Sadhguru is a World Economic Forum sellout. I've seen pictures of him with Klaus Schwab. Now, that caught my attention because the World Economic Forum, in my experience, is definitely a front organization for the dark force globalist powers that want to do all kinds of things, and the last thing that they're interested is freedom and all the things they seem to represent. So all I did was type in Sadhguru Klaus Schwab picture, and here's what came up. Let's see, where is it? Is it here? Whoop, look at that. There he is with Klaus Schwab. And this was taken off of his website, and I put a link. So I went to the website and I read it, and there was an interview with Sadhguru about the World Economic Forum and what he thinks about global issues, blah, blah, blah. And to be honest, I can't find anything wrong with what he said. But this is a guy who had a samadhi experience, and I believe he did have a samadhi experience. And yet he's still naive enough to believe that the World Economic Forum is a place that he should associate himself. I mean, that's taking him at face value and giving him the benefit of the doubt. At the very least, there's some intuition that's not functioning there. Now, to be completely fair and transparent, up until 2021, I also had no clue what the World Economic Forum was. And if you had asked me about it, I would have said, it's just a place where a bunch of politicians and business leaders go. They don't have any power. It's meaningless, because I truly didn't care. I didn't care about politics and business and all that. But I wouldn't have believed if you had told me what the dark forces are doing and how the World Economic Forum is used to empower the dark forces to destroy the earth and consciousness. So for somebody who's had a samadhi experience and presents themselves as a spiritual teacher, even if they truly mean it and they're honest and authentic, it shows at the very least a lack of intuition. And in my experience with myself, when I have a lack of intuition about something that obvious, it means that I have an agenda. It means I have a selfish agenda. So, without having any personal judgment on Sadhguru, I then say, well, there must be some ego agenda that he has, at the very least, in trying to be the spiritual leader who saves the world or wants to transform the world. That will block you. And again, the damage is his students, if they see him as God, it means he can't do any wrong. And this is why I think teachers should just focus on teaching. I think teachers should stay out of the public eye. I mean, they can do whatever they want. I don't have an issue. You want to be a business leader, whatever. But, the other thing that kind of got to me was seeing how he wants to influence politics and wants to influence business and wants to influence governments and, has opinions like Indians should be forced to stand for the national anthem. These kinds of things tell me that there's a human attachment to the idea that the world and politics can somehow, fix things, and that he's going to influence that. And well-meaning, naive, slightly narcissistic people end up getting themselves into places exactly like this. And then, their association is used to harm more people. So that was interesting. Somebody brought that to my attention in the comments. Somebody else, again, I'm not going to. Other people are just attacking him personally, and I don't have any evidence for that, so I'm not going to do that. And somebody asked, did you know that Sadhguru is a member of the World Economic Forum? I've seen footage of him at the World Economic Forum. He thinks that there needs to be less people alive on the earth currently. And I used to believe that too. I don't anymore. I don't believe in that. But anyway, so what is the solution? So if you're sitting here listening to me and you're disappointed because you wanted to have the right to escape escaping the matrix. This is why I used to get on people for wanting to escape the matrix. I've said it before then, I'll say it now. I said, even if you knew where the literal escape hatch from the matrix was, and even if you were to escape this matrix and go to a perfect heaven, you'd still bring yourself with you. If you went through that portal and went to a heaven, you would create a hell. Because the misunderstanding is that everything that you see around you is your own creation. Literally everything. Everything you see, everything you feel, even if it's in another country. You turn on the television, bombs are exploding. You created that. That is a reflection of your internal reality. And if you don't change your internal landscape, you will bring that wherever you go. It is my belief, which I'm not thoroughly convinced on. I'm not attached to it. I don't need for anything that I say here to be true. I'm not a prophet. This isn't a religion. But based on my interactions with higher dimensional beings, it is my own explorations in the fifth dimension creating my perfect understanding of what a 5D world would be. It is my belief, and dare I say my hope, that in the fifth dimension we will create a frequency where these kinds of things can't enter. We will have a world where the frequency is such that you won't be able to vibrate on that level. And again, what I've said before is that 5D is not a place, it is a frequency. And if we create a 5D heaven at a certain frequency where it is impossible to be filled with any kind of negativity that could harm other people. And the only way around that is to create an internal environment where you do not harm yourself. You do not devalue yourself. And again, I've come to believe that what I teach in my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, that is going to be the mindset of all people in the fifth dimension, which is their first and main focus will be on the fulfillment of their soul. And because the soul is connected to all other souls, all other conscious beings, and all other dimensions, that when you are focused and vibrating and living and taking actions to bring the joy and bliss of your soul, you are doing that for every other being on the planet, which is opposite from religion. Religion says, deny yourself and save others. Yeah, I was trying to think of another example, but I can't remember her name. Sister Mother Teresa. You don't hear about her as much. You used to hear about her all the time. In fact, people would say something, "What are you, Mother Teresa?" And she was a nun who worked, I don't know, in Africa or someplace like that. And she was known for just spending her entire life feeding the poor and healing the sick and blah, blah, blah. And when you look into her life, she was actually incredibly depressed, extremely miserable. So much so that she wondered if there was a God, because how could a God allow so much misery on this planet? And then you find out from other people she was actually quite abusive. This is somebody who spent her entire life trying to fix other people. And what has it done? When you focus on bringing yourself your happiness and finding the divinity within yourself, and creating your perfect reality for yourself, you are simultaneously doing that for everybody else. It's impossible to be in a state of bliss for your own soul and not have feelings of unconditional love for all other beings. And then you do things unconditionally. You give to people without thinking about it. You do things for other people without thinking about it. You just do it because it makes you happy, because they're part of you. Back in the third dimension, however, we have to focus on our character. So let me give you, this, I'll end with this, my definition of enlightenment. And I've been saying this from the beginning. In the third dimension, enlightenment is this: being conscious, aware of all of your thoughts, your feelings, both positive and negative, embracing, accepting, and loving yourself in all of those feelings, positive and negative, and then having the consciousness to act in a constructive manner for both yourself and other people. And so you can be in a state of enlightenment and be suicidally miserable. Because as I've said before, it's not about getting rid of your feelings. People ask, how do I get over my fear? And I say, when did I ever tell you were supposed to get over anything? It's not about getting over your feelings. It's about acting in consciousness in spite of your negative feelings. You don't shove them down, because if you shove them down and try and deny them, you guarantee that they will control you. And you will take actions on them, destructing yourself and others. So when you're fully conscious of them and you're feeling them, you're not denying them. You may have impulses to do destructive things, but impulses don't hurt people. Feelings don't hurt people. Deliberate actions do. When you take actions deliberately and you follow those impulses, those self-defense impulses based out of fear and pain, you harm yourself and everybody else. I've said this before. Alcoholics, drug addicts, when they go into those meetings where people confront them and say, hey, you need to go to therapy, or you need to go to AA, or you need to go into a hospital program, your drug use is hurting me, they will say, leave me alone, I'm not hurting anybody else. And the truth is they are. Every time they hurt themselves, they're hurting other people. And vice versa. Whenever you are loving yourself, you are loving other people. And that is enlightenment. And I say that because people can have a samadhi experience. They can have that experience of being connected to infinity and feeling one with everything. And when they come back, they actually buy into the idea they've achieved perfection. And then they're clueless of their own narcissistic behavior. And they end up doing things unconsciously, well-meaning. They're consciously full of bliss and well-meaning, but unconsciously they're harming others. They do things and they're not even intuitively connected to what they're doing, because they believe that state of bliss gives them, carte blanche to do everything. And then they end up in a space where they don't have the intuition to know that their selfish, narcissistic agendas, 3D agendas, they spiritualize them, and then next thing you know, you are shaking hands with Klaus Schwab, thinking that you're saving the world. So, anyway, I don't know what I've said, but I think I'm done saying it. So let's see if there are any thoughts or questions. I'm happy to take a look at that. I have to get on the right screen here. What else? Cats and me question. I did the Awakening Immortals more than a few months and my life remained the same. You don't know that. Your feelings remained the same. Your experience remained the same. You don't know if your life stayed the same or not. So you're not telling me what your definition of my life is the same. So you say, I did the Awakening the Immortals more than a few months, and my life remained the same, and I didn't gain the power. What power? What power? Again, these are assumptions. What power is it that you want? I've never made any promises that you're going to get any specific power. What I've told you is that if you do that on a regular basis, continuously, you will shift. But your issue, cats and me, I know something about you. I know something about how your brain works. Your issue is that you are constantly focused on the negative. And so your brain is constantly looking to prove to yourself all of the negative things. So I never said that you would stop being human, that you would achieve enlightenment, that you would be away from your essence. What I said is that if you do the practice, I guarantee you that you will shift. But the key is the people around you. Now I know, again, something about you, cats and me, because you've said you've deliberately done destructive things to other people. And at one point I had to get kind of harsh with you and threatened to block you off the channel if you didn't change your behavior. And you were justifying why you were deliberately hurtful to other people. So the question is, by doing this, has your behavior towards others changed? You might still feel the same, but have your actions changed? Your actions are going to prove whether or not your frequency has changed. And I never gave a time frame. I never said it was going to happen in X amount of, you said a few months. So you set an arbitrary time limit, a few months, and by a few months I should be enlightened and everything should be. And I never gave you those things. Those are all coming from you. The idea about doing any work, awakening the immortals, meditating, mantra, runes, going to the gym, isn't because you're looking for a specific outcome. It's because you're doing the practice so that you can stay conscious. That's what the discipline is about. So I'm sorry if I led you to believe that somehow if you did it for a few months or X amount of time that everything was, and all of your feelings were going to go away. I'm sorry that you got that misunderstanding. You say, I didn't gain the power. Is it because the ascended masters rejected me? No. It's because you stopped. It's because you have expectations on yourself. So you go into, do these things without expectation, without selfish agenda. Just do it for the sake of doing it. And do it so that you can become a better person, so that you can be more conscious and loving towards yourself and towards other people. There's nothing, again, that is the definition of enlightenment. The definition of enlightenment is when you are conscious of all of your thoughts and feelings, both positive and negative, and you take action consciously, even if it's completely contrary to your feelings and your impulses. You take conscious action in ways that you know are beneficial to yourself and other people, even if you're in pain and even if you don't want to do them. That is the state of enlightenment. Generally speaking, heterosexual men and women, or the masculine and the feminine, generally speaking, everybody's different, but generally speaking, when men say, I love you, it doesn't mean they're having a feeling. They might be filled with a feeling of love, but generally speaking, when a man says to a woman, I love you, what he's saying is, I'm committed to you. Meaning, my actions are going to be focused on your happiness and your well-being, even if I don't want to do it. Generally speaking, women, when they say, I love you, it means in that moment they're having a loving feeling. So in this case, we're talking about enlightenment is similar to the masculine understanding of, yeah, what the last thing I want to do is get up at 4 in the morning and go and work 12 hours to support you and the kids. But I love you. I'm committed to you. So I'm going to do the very thing I don't want to do. I would much rather go to Vegas and hang out with strippers and drink and gamble. But even though that's a feeling that I have and I really hate my job and I want to run away from it, but my commitment is that I love you. I'm going to go to work for 14 hours and come home with a paycheck and support this family because I love you and I love my kids. That's enlightenment. Taking conscious action that you know is helpful for others even when it doesn't feel good. So cats and me, I understand you want to feel good and I want you to feel good. But once you put that arbitrary, by this time, if I don't feel like this, it's not working. You're only setting yourself up for failure. You're sabotaging yourself. Zello Watch, I don't know you. You say, are you saying you know the secrets of the world? If I said I knew the secrets of the world, that's what I would have said. And you can go back and listen and see if I said that. Cats and me, I'm literally in psychic, emotional, mental pain like I want to cry, but there's no tears falling out. Thank you for sharing your feelings. Zello Watch says, what I need is spiritual healing, but don't know shit about spirituality in general. Welcome to the channel. So what I say to everybody that's new to the channel, and I haven't got to it yet today, is if you're new to the channel, there are 3 playlists that you can find. Go to the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel and you can go to the Qigong folder, which is the where it says Awakening the Immortals, the Hul breath, the Hua breath. These are energy meditative practices. Do them. Won't cost you anything. You can just press play and follow the instructions. I teach you how to do it. Do some kind of energy work to shift your frequency up to the 5D, approaching the 5D level. Second playlist I want you to look at is the 12 steps to achieving 5D. Watch those videos and do those things. I tell you specific things to do. Won't cost you anything, do them. And the third one is go to the interdimensional meditation folder and again, just do the guided meditations. You need spiritual healing. These are the most powerful tools that I have. And the promise that I made Cats and Me misunderstood is that if you do those things, if you do something from those 3 playlists every day, or you do something from all 3 of them every day, and you do it consistently, I guarantee you will shift. I guarantee you your life will change. You may have some feelings. More than likely you will have some feelings. But being in pain is just an emotional experience. And part of enlightenment is being in a state where your emotions don't have the ability to control your actions or your conclusions or your outlook. That's power. So power gives you the ability to be emotionally in pain, not deny it, and yet take positive action towards yourself. What most humans do is they're in pain, they lie in bed and eat Cheetos all day, or get drunk, or lose their job, or have horrible lives, and they say, well, it's because I'm in so much pain. Well, a powerful person is able to have their pain, to love themselves in their pain, and to take positive action. And eventually, those positive, constructive actions begin to change the chemistry of your brain. It takes time. But eventually, you will get to the place where you are happy and you are able to take actions and get immediate happiness from it. What else? Yeah, no, I'm not here to cure your self-doubts. So I've told you what to do. Go to the playlists and do those 3 things. Okay, on that subject now, I'm ready to end, but before I do, understand that this channel is about taking actions. You know, Zello Watch would be like you sitting there saying, I'm weak and I want to be strong. What should I do? I would say, go to the gym and lift weights and eat good food and get plenty of rest. And if you do that consistently over time, you're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. But sitting in front of the gym and complaining about how small your muscles are and thinking if you watch the gym long enough, it'll sort of rub off on you, it's not going to work. If you want spiritual enlightenment, you're going to have to take some actions. Even if you want a samadhi experience like Sadhguru has had. You want to have a meditative experience where you become filled with the bliss of the universe. Well, he meditated. He did yoga and meditation for years, and it finally paid off for him. So you're going to have to do something to achieve it, whatever it is that you want. And this universe is a universe of action. It's not a universe of thoughts or feelings. Those are just results. Those are just symptoms of things happening. They don't mean anything in and of themselves. So if you want to have that experience, I've given you the 3 free playlists you can check out. When you've tapped into the energy and you know that you want more, go here to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. And again, if you do that practice every day and you follow my instructions, I guarantee you that things will shift for you. Your life will change. If you want the elite practices, the most powerful energy practices that I know now from experience have been downloaded from 5D dimensional beings. And if you tap into these, you can create portals to higher dimensions. Go here to 923.thunderwizard.com. I give you all of the teachings that I've ever made, and the most powerful, which is the Maoshan 5-element forms. And I give you all of those things, at a severe discount. If you were to get all of those things separately, it would cost upwards of $5,000, but I've reduced that to almost nothing. So go here to 923.thunderwizard.com. Books you can find at michaelwilliamdenny.com if you're outside of the US, and you go there, click something at the top, which will take you to, whatever country you are at, Amazon, Kindle, or Audible. And if you want to ask me a question, but you don't want to become an apprentice, by the way, there are still some apprenticeship options where you can talk to me at least once a month. And that, again, you can find at thunderwizard.com. Click around for that. You'll get access to the 90-day challenge as well as being able to work directly with me, which is really like, getting half off in terms of working with me. But everybody needs to have a guide. Everybody needs to have a teacher, including me. I have a teacher. I work with him. In fact, when I get off this video, I'm going to work with him and my group. So if you want what I have, you got to do what I do. And if you aren't working with a teacher, then you've got an idiot telling you what to do. Just like when you try and become your own lawyer, you've got an idiot for a lawyer. So you need somebody that's not you physically, not a spirit being. That you can have spirit beings work with you, but they can't be your teacher. Teacher is a human being that will tell you the truth and guide you towards what you want. If you want to do that with me, you can. So subscribe to any of the apprenticeship options at thunderwizard.com. But if you want to ask me a question, you can go to askmike.thunderwizard.com and I will make a video of your question and I will put it up on the channel. If you want it private and you don't want it put up on the channel, I'll still make a video and answer your question. And you can go to askmike.thunderwizard.com, because whatever question you have, somebody else has that same question. So you're helping others just by doing that. All right, that's it, my friends. I love you all. Thank you for showing up. And for those of you that are continuing in this controversy, you've watched this up and down thing with me having issues with Sadhguru, and I hope you're still here, and I hope you're understanding the concept of not living in the black or the white, but living in the space of possibilities where it's not this or that, but it's this and that. So I've worked through my issues that I had about Sadhguru. I don't see him in the same light as I did. I'm not angry with him or annoyed at him. I see him as he is. He's a human being, and I think he's doing his best, and I think he has some room to grow, as do I and everybody else in the world. And so that is a good place for a student to be, to know that there's no such thing as a perfect teacher. There's no such thing as achieving enlightenment and being beyond reproach, at least in the third dimension. And even the gods, the ascended masters, the beings, the spirits, the guides, even they are learning and making mistakes. No matter, you exit this matrix, you'll enter a higher, more pleasant matrix, but you will still have to learn and grow. Then you'll enter another one and another one and another one. There's never a point where we stop learning and growing, and that is a very exciting thing. We get out of the third dimension and it's going to be a lot more fun, because this place is is probably the hardest school in the multiverse. All right, that's it for me, guys. I love you all. Thank you for showing up, and if I've done or said anything that's been offensive or hurtful to anybody, know that my desire is always to be helpful and loving, and if you bump into my humanity, good for you. That means that you're conscious and aware. And that's it. I will see you next time. If I don't get beamed up to the Starship Enterprise, or if the solar flash don't come, I will see you all very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves.